Nick Gauntlet, Private Night, by Austin McKinley. Chapter 5. I trudge back through the slightly more secular confines of Calomel, go over the interview in my head. After I punched bismuth, the bishop quoted me scripture. Be slow to anger, knock, and the door will be opened. Truth will set you free, sure, but whose truth? Most knuckle-draggers are willfully blind in the face of truth, prefer to trust their own emotions. They'd rather fight it than accept the self-evident. That's the hardest part about my job, to admit the innocence of people I don't like, and declare the guilt of people I do. I hate Saltpeter, no question. He's guilty of everything I expected. Pride, warmongering, extortion, greed, and lust. Everything except the murder of Marcus. I'm pretty sure about that. I turn a corner, run right into one of Raelgar's men. You have to come with us, Nick, the soldier tells me. I try to ignore him, go back the other way, but he isn't alone and the squad encircles me. Fair enough, I allow. I stand by the window as Sheriff Raelgar paces his office. What did I tell you, Nick? He fumes. You've told me a lot of things, I say. It's hard to keep track. He ignores this, continues. I just heard you broke into the parish church, and they had to chastise you. Some days you flog the bishop, I begin. It isn't funny, Nick, says Raelgar. The bishop's muscle refused me a meeting. I had to insist. I can't have you going about things this way, Raelgar sighs in exasperation. This isn't a siege. You can't just batter your way. The guy's dirty, Sheriff. Raelgar breaks off as I turn to face him. We all know it. I just don't think he's involved. Not this time. He's not the only one, says Raelgar. I've tolerated you in my burg because I know you're an okay churl. You serve a purpose. But if you make things hard for me, if you back me against a battlement, I'll have to serve this. He tosses a sheaf of parchment across the table. It's a wanted poster with a skillful two-color illumination of my mug, the one Prince John circulated upon my return to the country. Good likeness, I say. Where'd you get it? Bishop's man gave it me. It figured. Bismuth worked fast as hellbore, and came on twice as strong. Guess he didn't appreciate the little chewing I gave him and was looking for a way to chew back. But he likely had the bishop's blessing in this case. Old news, but still true. There's no statute of limitations on injuries to a king's ego or his brother's. Some people, it's a crime whether you do what they want or not. I'm not asking you to do anything, Nick, Raelgar says. We'll settle accounts for Marcus. Don't make me come after you as well. Not sure that's a promise I can make, I tell him, and we stare each other down. There's no doubt in my mind he's sincere, but that doesn't mean I let the civil service settle my debts. The alley behind the sheriff's office is dark and thick with English fog, and Lady Antimony is waiting for me when I step out. It's like a tunnel, but she's hardly a light at its end. She stands framed with the castle clock behind her. Poetic. You don't want to be seen with me right now, I tell her. Had my hand in one too many hornets' nests. She doesn't flinch, just looks at me with those big black eyes like lodestones, strangely attractive to iron. She's a crude compass I'm sure will steer me wrong. I stare at her a moment, then kiss her. She pries her mouth from mine, holds me at arm's length to inspect my bruises. Your standards come unraveled, knight, she says. I hiss as she touches my face. Her fingers find the tender spots, perhaps a bit deliberately. I nurse the wound. There are two kinds of people in this world, I say. Those who see a thread, want to pull it, and damn what happens. I kiss her again. She breaks it off. And the other kind? Can't think of them. Everyone wants to pull the thread. I press her against the alley wall. I'm sorry I sent you after Saltpeter, she continues between kisses. I lied to you, Nick. I didn't exactly believe your story, I tell her. I believed your aquavitae. But I almost got you killed. She bites her lip. And you're more valuable to me alive. I've never had a knight before. I doubt that's strictly true. I know Antimony's just using me to put one over on the old man. Just another intoxicant to distract me from the past. Am I really numb enough to fall for her? Do I really have no honor left? I'm willing to find out, but as my hands travel the usual pilgrim route to worship at the holy shrine, I meet some unexpected ironworks and stop in confusion. You got a chastity belt? I blink. She looks away in what, for her, almost registers as embarrassment. "That's why I don't want to lose you, Nick," she says, her voice firm but far away. "You're the only man in town clever enough to deal with this particular obstacle." She indicates the belt. "Not sure I know how," says I.
"Course you do,"
a second voice calls from the far end of the alley.
"You wouldn't want to disservice a lady."
I'd know that snide, pewter-tankard tone anywhere. "That you, Bismuth?" I sing out. "Bishop's altar boy looking for another way to get the scepter?" I take a step in front of Antimony and squint through the mist as I draw my short sword. Bismuth steps out of the fog with 9 burly thugs in his wake.
"What we don't confess won't hurt us,"
says Bismuth.
"Got a message for you. Back off the alchemist or you'll end up like Marcus."
So the killer is an alchemist, or wants me to think so. Antimony puts a hand on my shoulder. "You still excel at arms, don't you, Knight?" she asks. "My arms are fine," I tell her. Rest of me's a bit tarnished. "Good, I'll leave you to it," she says. "I have a banquet to attend." She bolts like a frightened mare out the end of the alley. The thugs part ways to let her go and turn on me. No beef with her, I guess. Or is it more than that? "You're working for the alchemist now?" I ask Bismuth. Thought the bishop wanted him stopped.
"He does, but we,"
Bismuth indicates his backup,
"don't mind taking pagan money to rough you up a bit. Bishop pays good, but not that good."
"You haven't met him then?" I ask, the alchemist.
"Why do you ask?"
says Bismuth. "No reason," says I, and nod to my short sword. "Shall we?" I'd like to think the fight I put up's a brave one, but I'm outnumbered 10 to 1. Sometimes when you get hit, it's so unexpected you have to laugh. Yep, that's the essence of comedy. The hit you don't see coming, and the loose teeth. I dodge and evade as long as I can, even give a few cuts by way of not selling myself cheap. But eventually they catch me, and pummel me within an inch of senseless. I can't breathe. The sky turns a strange purple-yellow, and I pass out. The hands on the castle clock are advanced a ways when I come to, wondering where I went wrong. The fog is thicker and darker than ever. I feel like garbage, and smell like garbage. So I'm not surprised to discover I'm lying in garbage. I am surprised to see Antimony's maid, Galena, looking down at me, a basket over her arm. She helps me sit upright. "What are you doing here?" I ask her. "I was headed to the market before it closed," she says. "Ingredients for a special dessert at the banquet. Flambé is my specialty." "That's so." I check my joints and straightaways. "French dish, right?" says I, and drag myself to protesting feet. I'm not sure how they managed to hurt my feet, but I muster what shoe leather's left and accompany Galena to the town market. "I'm glad you're not dead," she tells me, as we head down the high street to a square backs up to the castle's inner battlement. "I'm not sure that's how you'd best describe me," says I. Galena finds a fruit stall, spends some moments selecting wild pears and red currants. "We have stores of honeyed water and spirits at the castle," she tells me. "But the secret to a good flambé is fresh fruit." I nod, abstractly, and hear church bells, though I'm pretty sure we aren't on the quarter hour. "You sure you should continue with the case?" She notes my discomfort. "If it's going to take this kind of toll, I mean..." Her look of concern seems genuine enough. "What toll?" I wince. "More than the damage a few bottles of aquavitae can do," says Galena. "Perhaps you should let Marcus rest before you're killed as well." I shake my head again. The pain is a penance. Marcus was the best ironmonger I ever knew, and the best friend. Galena nods, looks at the fruit. "Philosophically, iron represents a need to temper primal urges, and at the same time, embrace the fire within." "You don't say," I grunt, my head about to throb its way off my shoulders. My vision's slightly blurred, but one thing's clear. Bismuth had given me a lead on the alchemist, and seeing as I only know one in town, I figure I'd like to limp along and stick a foot in the castle door again. After all, I still have a dagger in the cloakroom, left my glove in there in case I needed just such a pretense. I tell Galena about it, give her my best "don't mind the garbage" grin, and say, "What would I have to do to take a pretty maid in waiting to the banquet?" Galena laughs, blushes, links her arm in mine. Poor kid. Heart's in the right place, I think. I take her basket for her, walk her out of the market square, and back down the high street toward the town's inner gate. The guards, Alaric and Bourne, stop us at the gate. "You again?" says Bourne. "The Duke's party is invite only," adds Alaric. "Your wife said I had a standing invitation," I tell him, and make an obscene gesture. Alaric grabs me, but I manage not to lose my cigarette. "What's your problem?" Alaric spits. "Couldn't find a gutter to crawl back into?" "Suppose you talk to these bronze knockers for me," I say to Galena. "Tell them I left my glove in the Duke's magic mushroom cellar." "It's okay, Bourne," she says. "He's with me." "Thought you were with someone else." Bourne frowns. "Shut up and open the gate," says Galena. I stride back to the table in the dungeon, pick up my glove, waggle it at Galena. "Here it is," I say, and stuff it in my belt. Always putting things where they don't belong. She hands me a pail of steaming water from the hearth. "In case you want to clean the garbage off," she says. I smile and strip to the waist. Galena watches me as I scrub, and I get the distinct impression she's getting ideas. I finish, turn to face her. "There," I say. "Respectable enough for this lot." Sure enough, Galena lunges, traps me against the table, and kisses me hard. I jump, but don't resist. She breaks the kiss. Says I. "You still want to take me to the banquet?" she asks, her voice small. I put my hand on her head, smooth her hair. "Of course," I say. "How about you take me here instead?" The mouth on this girl. I told you how long it had been, right? I don't care why. Maybe it's the dungeon, or the fire, or the fact someone actually wants me for a change, but I forget any other irons I may have had in the furnace. We tear each other's clothes off. She winces at the fresh burn marks on my flesh, but I don't let it stop her. We climb part way onto the table and knock bottles over, which steam and hiss. "Don't breathe the fumes," she tells me. "Right," says I, and we roll onto the floor. The stones are warm where we make love by the bellows and the giant iron cauldron. "God, your perfume," I tell her. Inhale deeply despite myself. The smithy explodes again in my brain. Later, we lie by the fire, wrapped in an oilcloth I pulled from the coal store, and trade swigs from a fresh flagon of aquavitae. Galena nuzzles me, and I think hard. "Sorry if I seem forward, my lord," she says. "You do," says I, "but I won't complain. And don't my lord me. I'm no better than you." "I think you are, my lord, and I wanted to make up for," she indicates my wounds, "everything." "You didn't burn me with a poker." "But it happened following up on the information I gave you." "Women certainly will find a way to make everything their fault." "It's nothing," I tell her. "And thank you." I catch her eye. "My lady." She giggles. It's good to make someone laugh, and not just at me for once. Then she gasps. "My flambé," she says. "I have to get to the kitchen." She jumps up, whips the oilcloth off me. "Whoa," says I, suddenly exposed to the chill. "Sorry, says she, but she dresses underneath the oilcloth, best she can. "It's all right," says I. "Can't say I mind the cold. I spent too much time in the desert." I lie back, look at the ceiling, take a drink. She leans down, kisses me. "Stay here," she says. "I'll be right back." And she practically flies up the stairs.